This is Shari with Lesson 6. Learning is exciting. It really is. Learning to do new things with your mind, well, it's just as thrilling as learning to do new things with your hands. Of course, you already know that learning is exciting, but do you really know just how exciting it can be? Can you imagine how much fun it would be to dig up a buried chest full of pirate gold? Learning can be as exciting as that. Ideas and facts can be pieces of buried treasure which you can find and dig up. Now, this lesson's going to be a treasure hunt. We'll be exploring ways to learn more and to learn easier and faster. Best of all, you'll discover ways to keep the thrill in learning. You may even discover that homework can be fun and exciting. You begin by always keeping in mind this question. Are you listening? The simplest way to learn is to listen. In fact, listening is so simple that some people never discover how important it is. They go through life talking while they should be listening, and they miss half that goes on around them. Learning to listen well is one of the most useful, helpful habits you will ever acquire. Let's see how it's done, because the skill of good listening can be learned. You can practice until you're very good at it. To be really good, you must work at listening, just as a baseball pitcher must practice every day so that he'll be a good pitcher. A ballerina practices constantly so she won't make mistakes and so that every performance will be better than the last. Listening is much like pitching a baseball or dancing a ballet. It takes practice. And as you practice listening, do the following things. Are you listening? 1. When you're listening to someone, try hard to understand him. How does he feel? What is he thinking? Find out what he's saying. Find out why he's saying it. You can learn as much from the why as from the what. Suppose you hear a friend say, I'm going to find Johnny. Before you can know what these words really mean, you have to know why he said them. Was your friend lonely and looking for someone to talk to? Was he wanting to play? Or was he angry and trying to find Johnny so he could fight him? You see, the same words can have many different meanings. 2, be interested. Show your interest in what someone is saying, and you know you'll end up learning much more. 3, be patient. Let the other person finish before you start talking. Let him say everything he wants to say. Encourage him. Encourage him to talk by listening carefully. That's a fine way to learn. And it's also an excellent way to make friends. 4, pretend you're a detective. Remember that you listen in order to learn to understand the ideas the person's talking about. So as people talk, realize that they give off all sorts of clues and hints as to what they mean and why they're saying what they're saying. Be alert. Catch these clues. Be a mind reader. While someone is talking to you, try to figure out what he's going to say next. If you guess right, you're really understanding what he's saying. You can see by now that listening is much more than just being quiet while someone else is talking. To be a good listener, you've got to think hard. This kind of listening is the fun kind because you're busy doing something interesting. You can make a game of it and see how good a detective or a mind reader you are. And if you listen well, you can ask 1,000 questions. Have you learned yet to be a good question asker? There's a very old saying, you'll never learn much unless you ask questions. Well, like most sayings, I know it's kind of corny, but oh, it's true. If you know how to ask the right kind of questions, you can double or triple your listening power. Make it a habit to ask questions. Oh, don't be ashamed to ask. The people who ask the most questions are the smartest people. They're more interested in learning something than in showing off what they already know. Look at it this way. If you try to prove to another person that you know more than he does by telling him all you know, you don't help yourself at all, because then he knows both what you know and what he already knew, while you have learned nothing. There are several good things about asking lots of questions. One is that when you're asking questions, you're learning. Another is that asking questions makes your life more interesting. You become a curious person who's always seeking out new things. Eventually, you'll become a wise person who knows many different things, and asking questions helps you to make friends. Oh yes, one more thing about asking questions. Ask questions about things you already know about. You may find some unexpected treasure. You'll usually find out something you didn't know before, and you certainly will be helped by knowing what someone else thinks. Remember, you can learn from anyone. Did you know that you can learn from every person you meet? I mean, you can learn something. All you have to do is be willing to listen and learn. Let me tell you about Billy Harper. Billy often goes to a park near his home to play. One day he noticed a large man with a bushy head of white hair and a neat white beard sitting on a bench watching the children play. Day after day, Billy and his friends saw the same man in the park. Finally, Billy decided to introduce himself, and to his surprise, he found out that the man's name was also Bill. His name was Captain William Andrew Blackwell, a retired sea captain. In his youth, Captain Bill, as the boys learned to call him, worked on a whaling vessel. Later, he was the captain of his own ship, and he sailed to hundreds of ports all over the world. Before long, Billy and his friends were enjoying some of the most thrilling geography lessons you can imagine, listening to the captain's adventures. Nancy Mitford also discovered a treasure in a kind of unusual place. Nancy's family was adding a room to their house to make room for a new baby. After school one day, Nancy made friends with the bricklayer, Mr. Vincent. As they were talking, a beautiful butterfly alighted on a nearby bush. Nancy loved butterflies, and so she tried to catch this one for her collection. She didn't, but she did learn something surprising. Mr. Vincent liked butterflies too. In fact, butterflies were his hobby, and he had a fine collection. As he and Nancy began to talk about butterflies, she suddenly realized that he knew more about butterflies than anyone she'd ever known, even more than her science teacher. Well, the new part of the house is finished now, and all of the bricks are laid, but Nancy is still learning from Mr. Vincent. They hunt butterflies together one Saturday each month. Billy and Nancy discovered that school is only one of the places to learn things. You can learn wherever there are people if you find out about their travels, their jobs, their hobbies, and their interests. You see, people can be extremely exciting only if we take time to listen to them and to learn from them. Now, let's talk about why it's important to think for yourself. Learning from others is valuable, but we should guard against becoming copycats. Have you noticed that if the most popular girl in class shows up with knee socks, all the other girls want to copy her? And if the most popular boy wears turtleneck shirts, before long every boy is wearing turtleneck shirts. All of us need to be liked and accepted, so we tell ourselves the way to be liked is to be the same as everybody else, or at least to be the same as the best liked people. But did you ever realize that the leaders are always different? They do all the things we've been discussing: listening, asking questions, learning from other people, but they think for themselves. The point to remember is that to be the best person you are able to be, you gotta make your own decisions. Don't ever do anything simply because everybody else does. You listen to others and learn from them. But when you feel that everyone else is wrong, you're brave enough and strong enough to do what you believe is right. To get the most from Adventures in Growth, you should listen to each lesson once a day for 6 days. So that the tape in your cassette for this lesson will be in the proper position the next time you want to listen, press the button marked REW on your tape player until all the tape is on the left-hand spindle. You can see the tape through that little window in your cassette. If this is the 6th time for you to listen to this lesson, and if you're ready to proceed to the next lesson, press the button marked Fast Forward on your tape player until all the tape is on the right-hand spindle. The tape will then be in the proper position when you wish to review Adventures in Growth.